All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to a meeting of the Administration and Public Works Committee for Wednesday, August 12th, 2026, here in the Wildwood City Hall Community Room. Ms. Mathis, would you please take roll?
Councilmember Owen,
Here.
Councilmember Trottier, Chair Ottenberg,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell, Councilmember Means,
Here.
Councilmember Rambo,
Here.
Councilmember Kranz,
Here.
Councilmember Albers.
Here. Super. So it sounds like we have a quorum, so that's always a good thing. Next, we move on to approval of the minutes from the July 2026 meeting. Does anyone have any comments, questions regarding the minutes from that particular meeting? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes made by Councilmember Means, seconded by Councilmember Kranz. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Matt had his hand raised.
Oh, sorry. Matt. Sorry about
Yes,
that.
I was just letting you know that I'm here. I wasn't a panelist when you did roll call, so I am on the meeting.
Perfect. Thank you very much. All right, all those in favor, I think we did the ayes. Any opposed? Abstentions?
I have to abstain.
Okay. One abstention from Councilmember Rambo. Motion carries, minutes approved. Moving on to public participation, we have one gentleman here in the room. Do we have anybody online, Ms. Mathis, that you can see?
That I can see.
Okay, so
Lou Solomon,
Can I possibly abstain until after you talk about the deer issue? If anything's needed, I might save you time. I might not say anything then. Is that possible?
we don't have deer issue on the agenda tonight.
Nothing on it?
No.
Okay, all right. Then no need to speak then.
Okay, all right, very good. Well, thank you for coming anyway.
Yeah, saved you a lot of time.
All right, super, thank you. Okay, so since there's no one online, then we'll move on to administration. And the first item is the targeted workforce analysis and review of contracted services with in-house staffing. We will turn things over to the city administrator on this topic.
Thank you, Chair. Updating this more of a primer memorandum tonight, but wanted to bring this to the committee's attention, given that we had this at a previous committee meeting to look into the construction engineering cost, doing an analysis on that, but we've also had requests about this, the staff levels in general by the committee, but also the council. So we wanted to make sure we were answering those questions, but the key that we were looking at when we were thinking about what positions could make sense for the city is that we do have a tight budget. We're about to be entering the budget season. We're starting to post some of those documents now to start working on the 2027 budget. And we're looking at it from a perspective of, can we find some positions that might be able to save the city some money versus adding capacity that take more away from the city's budget. So nonetheless, this memorandum kind of goes into detail about our model. It has worked pretty successfully for 30 years. At the end of the day, when the founders had incorporated Wildwood, one of the main things that were discussed was we will be a contract-based city. So the majority of the actual field labor that takes place here in Wildwood are handled by our contractors that have their own insurance, hire their own employees, and handle their affairs internally. That said, we do have a small army of project managers here at the city, and a couple of them are sitting next to me today, which oversee this contract work on a day-to-day basis and pretty much make sure that the work that's being done in the field is up to the city standard and to the spec of something we had actually designed and put together, but just making sure that the work is done complete and is completed in a proper state. When looking at this and trying to figure out if there are positions that could be potentially added that also could offset themselves, it's a tricky analysis, because when you start peeling back the layers on some of these positions, you have to take into consideration the capital investment up front that would need to take place to really give them the equipment needed to get to the locations. While it's a pretty large city, so getting around is one. The insurance requirements, some positions also would require potentially have some type of union membership, an electrician, which we'll bring up tonight. So there are some more nuanced considerations to think of, but just to give a general framework of some of the work that we have contracted here in the city. It's listed out in the memo too, but just in general, the mowing contract, we've been doing a pretty good job at that. Help of Destin and Department of Public Works here. We're actually able to identify the areas that we mow. We have a square footage for each area, and we actually bid those out as a total instead of having an hourly base. So we have made some improvements there. That said, obviously you can always keep building upon it. We can get into the mowing question of would it be beneficial to bring mowers on? We have a preliminary analysis of it. The landscaping maintenance is another that we've looked at and kind of talked about over the years. Tree removal and vegetation work, I will say that the city arborist that we brought on has saved the city quite a bit of money. He requested the use of a chainsaw, which, obviously we don't want to have him out there doing a large amount of work that two people would need to be doing. But when it comes to a small piece of brush that's, broken into a trail, a lot of the times Mike takes the initiative, goes out and removes it himself, so he doesn't have to make a call over to our contractor to come out and get the service ticket charge on top of the labor that gets charged on top of it. So it does show that in limited capacities that you can save a good deal of money if you have someone on the team that is out there looking at it. So that's a positive example in the right direction. We also have sidewalk repairs. I'll also point out, just give us some kudos to the team today, but we had some trip hazards that needed to be addressed. We didn't have all too much more money in the budget. We have already programmed the trip hazards that need to be addressed this year. So Destin actually went out and patched a few trip hazards for us. So nonetheless, just wanted to point out that team does go out there and do some of these things. They're more so the ones that one person can handle. When you start getting into, you need 2-3 people. That is when we usually deploy our contractors out in the field. Same goes for pretty much all street maintenance, the storm-related cleanup that we do, snow and ice removal. I would make a note that snow and ice removal definitely we have a very large benefit as a city having those as contractors, just because we don't have to maintain that sheer number of equipment. When we call in for the help, when we have a big snowstorm, we have access to 40 drivers, 40 plow drivers per the contracts that we have on file, which in order to get that, from an in-house personnel perspective, would be quite a feat, and that's more than it's almost double what we currently have for full staff. So nonetheless, just pointing out some of the, we want to look at this, but we also want to be realistic on the cost on the back end if we were to bring something in-house. Some others that we looked at that could potentially be entertained is that we do have, for our larger capital projects, we do bring on a construction engineering consultant that goes out and just makes sure that the project is done within the spec that was designed. And they also do the testing and reporting that's necessary to maintain the federal funding that we have in place. So that could be something we would look at. One question right now is that we have a consultant that we actually can get reimbursed on from that federal grant, because they encourage that work to be done. Obviously, the reporting is mandatory, so that is a reimbursable expense. We think it's possible to do that with an in-house employee, but that is something we'd have to work through as well. But just wanted to point out that one item. Some things to keep in mind if we were to bring someone online, in some of these positions, just some background stuff that is a little bit more than just their compensation, but health insurance, the other benefits that we provide, payroll taxes that we do pay, retirement contributions, workers' comp that we have to pay for each employee, any training and certification to be necessary if they need a vehicle, which a lot of these would need a vehicle, the equipment necessary, the tools that would be necessary, fuel for the vehicles, the maintenance of said equipment. The list is pretty extensive to actually put someone out in the field. The good news about how we run it today is that we have individuals that take on the liability of being out in the field, and they are the ones that have to make sure that that person shows up. They have a contract, we hold them to the contract, and then they have to respond in a certain amount of time. The question that sometimes gets raised is, hey, can you have quicker response with your own staff? Well, you do have a little bit more control, but we have found historically that our contractors, if we call them to get out in the field to address a trip hazard or go out and stripe an area that, we got a complaint on, it's done in a relatively short order, same week. So the responsiveness, we have seen some success, but really when we go into, what type of assets are we maintaining that may be worth examining? One that has come up since we've seen a lot of our street lights, we have over 800 in the town center area in our parks alone. One that we had looked at and just seen that, over time, the life cycle of our streetlights, they're kind of getting closer to the end, and Destin could tell us even more about it. But at the end of the day, they are having more issues. We're having to send folks out to troubleshoot, and those costs for the electrician is going up. And typically when you see that decrease in a given year, we end up having to spend some on our traffic signals too. So there's a couple different mechanisms at play. Two different consultants that you would use for that as well. One's just the electrician, you know, to take care of a street light. The other would actually work on the timing mechanism, and we want to keep that with an engineering consultant to be able to do that. So nonetheless, did want to bring this to the committee's attention, request feedback in general on looking into a few different positions that would be able to kind of make their way back, if you will, when it comes to revenue and expenditure. The electrician's one, with us having so many streetlights, we tend to have one down at all, there's one down always. We always have another work order being issued. The same can be said for the lights here at the municipal building, Cabell Pond School that we maintain. We also have streetlights that are located in our parks that can use consistent maintenance. And one thing that individual could in theory do, the streetlight doesn't care if it's winter, summer, or spring, so it's not one of those seasonal positions that will have a pretty hard deadline and cutoff period. That said, the electrician component would also require us to discuss whether or not we'd have to work with a union in some cases. So there is some drawbacks there too, but when it comes just the sheer number of streetlights that we have, we also want to look at in the future, we'll talk about this later for the capital, but having a program that slowly converts our lights to LED. Right now, a lot of them are they're incandescent or they are sodium based. They are a little bit less efficient as they could be, and then they do require a little bit more maintenance. So nonetheless, something to look at and consider moving forward. That one might have some decent potential if we can figure out the issue with the labor component, and also the insurance for the individual going out there. If there is an issue that happens, that would be on us. The city would be taking the liability. The seasonal mowing and grounds maintenance, we had looked at that too. We've looked at that every now and then, just given that is one of the large expenditures the city has, is maintaining a large amount of parkland and right-of-way space. When we looked at it, the main thing is the seasonal nature of the job. It's not necessarily bringing them on board. We could probably find the employees to do so, but the administrative work on the back end to make sure you're filling those rosters each year. First of all, you'd have to establish how many people would be necessary to properly clear the areas that we have. I mean, it's a very large number of spaces that we're cutting today. And then on the back end, you'd have to recruit those individuals each year because we have almost like a blackout period where grass doesn't grow between the late winter months. So nonetheless, that one seems tangible, but also could have some drawbacks. And if you're not able to fill those positions, you may still have to bring on a contractor anyway. So may point to the contractor-based model still working well, especially given that we had changed our approach a few years back to allow we put out a total number of square footage. We give every space that we cut, and then the individual bids on the total year versus giving us an hourly rate and then chipping away at it. So just wanted to point out some of the improvements that have been made over the years. Landscaping and horticultural maintenance, that also has the seasonal nature to it. We do a lot of weeding, mulching in general. When we have our playgrounds, we mulch them each year. So there are some efficiencies that could be realized, but once again, it comes down to us having a kind of a blackout period over the winter. They could potentially assist if you keep them on with putting together some of the RFPs for some of this work when we actually need it. But truthfully, it is difficult to justify during those winter months unless they have specialized skills elsewhere where you would put them. If they obviously have the skills to do something else in-house, then that would be great, but you won't find a team of those individuals. It would be kind of give or take. And then during the summer months, we would need them dedicated solely to cutting grass every day. Then lastly, and if Mr. Brown wants to add anything on this, he's more than welcome if the chair's permission, but the construction engineering and the capital project field work, that one, if we could confirm that it could be reimbursed, we did have a part-time position that did this for us a few years back. And if it could be reimbursed, there could be some cost savings there. That said, the one question that would be brought up again is if this person is an engineer, they could definitely help with permitting work. There's other work that could be assigned out because truthfully, during the spring, summer, and fall, that's usually when we're doing the majority of our construction, doing the larger projects. If you don't have a project in the field, you don't necessarily need that person out there doing the reporting work. So there would be heightened times where that individual would be stretched very thin. Time like now where we'd have 109BA going on and Old State Road, doing both of those, kind of driving back and forth would be a tall task. But on the flip side, when we get into winter of this year, those projects have been concluded. That individual would work on closing out the project, which would help, and, you know, they could definitely help out, but the other side would really, do they have the credentials to review permits at that point from the engineering side? So overall, when looking at a lot of these positions, we can do a deeper dive, bring up the financials and try to do an estimate and do an analysis, but it seems like some of these have, it looks good, but when you take into account the cost of onboarding the individual, the background cost of the employee, and then also the cost of the equipment necessary and the insurance, it starts to make the case a little bit more difficult to bring the individual on just from a preliminary look. We might go in there and do a further look on some of these and see that it could very well work. That's what we wanted to ask tonight from the committee. Should we proceed with looking into some of these positions? And if not, we have some of the others listed too, but wanted to go over the main ones. If not, then we will take that direction as well. Thank you.
So first, it says that this council requested this. Was this something that maybe was requested before I came, that we look into this?
Yeah, there was more of a discussion. There was definitely a request to look into the construction engineering component to see if that it could be itself its own position. So that's where it kind of originated. And then there has been discussion about just staffing levels in general. So we wanted to, from a staffing perspective, given that we're about to enter budget, we wanted to provide rational ideas to the committee here and then eventually to the city council. If we're gonna add a position, you know, make sure that we can justify that position with some type of savings, just given the current fiscal reality. So that's where it kind of came from.
Okay, so then you've listed like 4 opportunities and another 4 beyond that. But you also say that it's gonna take a bunch of your time to do the analysis. So if we're gonna do this, can we just target maybe one function that
Yes.
thinks, you know, we would think would make sense? And do that analysis if
Yeah.
if we decide to move forward, because clearly I don't think it's in our best interest to have you guys digging down on, you know, 4 or 8 different potential opportunities, because we wouldn't pull the trigger on all 8 of them anyway. We might pull the trigger on one if it's economically makes sense. So I think we would want to just have you focus on the one that you think makes the most sense, and I would think one that would be not super capital intensive. One of my concerns with all these mowers and trucks is where are we gonna put them on? You know, because we don't have a big storage building that I'm aware of. Again, I'm new, but I don't think we have anywhere to park a bunch of trailers and trucks and you know, put mowers inside in the winter when they're not being utilized.
Yeah, we have the salt storage facility over at the Kelp property, but other than that, it is very limited where we have space to store things. So right now, we store a lot of our roadway equipment in the garage area, the corral, we call it, and it is fenced off, it's locked, everything along those lines, but it's kind of tucked into the corner of parking garage. And quite frankly, if you were talking about large, you know, heavy machinery equipment, it would not fit. So you're hitting on the right note. And if we wanted to look into a few of these, that would be preferred too, just the ones that the council or the committee here believes may result. We can give the recommendation on which ones we think might have the most turnaround. But I would agree that doing, you know, all 8, we're not gonna hire 8 people. So that would be.
Councilmember Means.
Yeah, if we went that direction, what's a timeline for staff to return findings approximately?
It depends on the number, but I would say we could have it back in, you know, 2-3 months. We try to do it bring it up during the budgeting cycle, probably October, when we review the offer.
So that would be fiscal year 27.
Yep, it would be for so.
So I don't know who had their hand up first, if it was Councilmember Krantz or Councilmember Trottier, so.
I yield to
Okay,
Councilmember Troyer.
so Matt, you're up.
Thank you. So my, I guess, opinion is consistent with Councilmember Owens. I would focus on one, and I would eliminate the seasonal workers out of this. I think that's a valid outsourced utility. I don't think we need people, you know, we don't need full-time staff to mow grass, etc. You mentioned engineering, and I'm curious if your proposal to have a part-time employee makes sense, but is there a way that we can have a dual function there possibly? So go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and when you say dual function, we were thinking at least something in-house and during the heightened period of construction, we'd probably have that individual obviously out in the field, but then if the individual were to come in during the winter months, it would be more focused on, reviewing permits and kind of helping with some of our engineering review that we do in general and capital planning as well.
So that, yeah, I agree with that. I would not focus on seasonal staff, and I would look for somebody that can be a Swiss Army knife. And the engineering one kind of stood out to me. So thank you.
Councilmember Krantz.
You mentioned the electrician, Tom. What I'd like to see is how much we pay a year for electricians to, if we could justify putting the job on. So that's what I'd like to see first before I decide. If we pay $500,000 a year for electrician in our contracts, maybe it's worth something to look at,
It is in the $100,000 range. I can pull up the more specific example, but it's not $500,000.
It's not 200,000,
It's 100 to 200.
So it's probably better to contract it then.
That's a lot of these.
When you add the benefits in, the retirement, the insurance, yeah, okay.
So Councilmember
We
Rambo.
need some equipment for that too, because
That one,
they need
yeah.
a lift of some kind.
Yep, you need a lift. You could have it be just like street light maintenance and they wouldn't necessarily, the electrician most likely wouldn't touch our street lights. We would have to leave that to an engineering firm and consultant as well. Rick can speak on that further, but that's something where you don't want to mess with the timing and you don't want to have, that's just too big of a risk. You don't want to have that fall on the city's head where the street light's no longer operating functionally and we break it beyond repair. But yeah, you would need some type of lift mechanism and also a way to get that lift around town too. So like a bucket truck would most likely be a remedy there, but
Well, you would need not only a bucket truck, you would need the tools from the bucket truck. And then you would have the question, what happens if the electrician is sick for a few days and maintenance is getting backed up? Besides that, if you do have him doing replacement work or replacement parts, then what is the procurement process going to be for those replacement parts? Are we going to keep a stock or an inventory here? So there's a lot more than just having a truck and an electrician on board. And I just say that because that's the industry that I came out of, working with electrical contractors and electricians.
It seems like a lot of the stuff we would want them to be doing is stuff that is time sensitive. And so then you're constantly gonna be having to have a third party backup for them.
Yep.
So.
We have a hand raised.
Councilmember Rambo, you raised your hand a couple of minutes ago.
No, that's fine. This is good discussion. I agree with Phil and Matt, that we probably ought to focus. What I would hate to do is paint Tom into a corner and specify which one. I think he should have the flexibility to take a preliminary look at all of these. I think we can cut out the mowing one because, as everyone has said, we would have to buy $100,000 worth of mowing equipment and store it in half of the year and so forth. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It may to the folks that do it on a daily basis. But what I would say is the landscape maintenance, that's a different skill set. And in the winter, they could concentrate on parks and maybe working on the trails that get eroded over the course of the summer and so on and so forth. And there, I could easily see that being a full-time job. It's just a matter of putting dollars to it and finding the skill set that's a bit more flexible, but it's really the same stuff. Anybody that can do mulching can use a shovel, et cetera. And so the electrician my first glance was the electrician has some legs, but again, we have union issues. I used to, early in my career, I used to have a union electrician follow me around, didn't know the first thing. He'd sit there and read a book while I was doing my work, but the union mandated that somebody, supervise low voltage electrical work and so forth. And so there's union issues, the insurance. I don't think the equipment is as much of a factor because you can run to Chaseco or you can run to Home Depot and you can get a lift that will do 100% of the work that's needed. It's just a matter of, do you need it for a month, at which time you get a cheaper rate and so on and so forth. And so, and the same thing with contract engineer. In slack times, that person could easily help with, even with code enforcement. And so, because the code enforcement folks, they seem to be behind all the time. And, so I think that might have some legs as well. And so my bottom line is if I had my druthers, I would say, Tom, take a preliminary look at these and see which one is gonna be the most fruitful avenue to pursue, if that makes sense to everybody else.
Councilmember Trottier, you have your hand up?
Yes, sorry, in my initial comments, I failed to mention that in my opinion, the electrician and the obligations that that individual would have, I do not think that the city should incur those liabilities for an in-house staff. I think we're well suited sitting or siding with contract resources for that.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Councilmember Kranz.
So Tom, is there some occupation that we're spending a lot of money on that we really can justify a
The one that
position?
has been popping up as of late is that electrician role. It has its downsides too, but
But we don't think that's necessary for electrician.
not necessarily. But
Is there somebody else you're looking at?
the construction engineering is an interesting one to look at. If we can be reimbursed, I think that could prove financially viable and also having some more control.
You can justify it on money?
Yes, that if it can be reimbursed by the the project grants that we do have, because right now the consultant gets reimbursed. We get reimbursed on those costs for the consultant, but then
We pay for them out of capital improvements
yes,
versus.
Yeah.
Well, there's a question there.
Which is a big difference.
it
So
is.
be honest here. Is there something that we can just kill this right now? Would you recommend that?
I would say if there's one to look at, the construction engineering one could be helpful because it doesn't come out of operating. Rick brings a very good point. The operating budget's the one that's razor thin each year. We actually did a great job last year, scaling back our capital improvement budget to meet the demands of what we were needing in the community, but also being fiscally responsible. That said, if we were to bring this, the one question I would have is bringing this person in-house for the construction engineering, you would start paying for that outside of your general fund, and that would cause our already razor thin margin to become thinner. So that's the one, even if you get reimbursed, it doesn't help that the revenue is still staying stagnant because where we're paying for it, if that makes sense. So that'd be the one I would say to look into further, if there was one. And landscape, I would almost say with landscape, could you tie that in with, because the department agrees that code enforcement could use all the help they can get. So is there a way to tie that in as well, whether it be through the construction engineering or be through, a landscape, individual that works on that, kind of helps, in Mr. Walsh's department, Public Works, maybe there's a way to kind of have a jack of all trades as being
Is
mentioned.
this worth your time then?
I think for a very limited, possibly looking at, the construction engineering component for reimbursement reasons, and also looking at the code enforcement side of it, and that's really that side of the building, yes.
Being tight with the budget now, we'd be adding
That
a
would
person,
be added.
so.
That's where it,
I'm not sure that's wise right now.
What, Councilor Owen, I'll get to you in just in a second. What action were you looking for from the committee tonight, city administrator?
was just getting more generalized feedback. This was something that was brought up. We wanted to make sure we addressed it and had it brought to the committee's attention, so it wasn't, dropped to the side. But that said, if the committee would like us to do a little bit further research, bring that back and have the numbers associated with it, we can definitely do that just for the construction engineering component, maybe the landscape component, and then also show how that person could be a switch army knife, if you will. Come up with what the roles and responsibilities could in theory be and see if that's even feasible.
So are you looking for suggestions from us regarding the 1, 2, or 3 positions that we want to?
Not necessarily. If that's the committee's desire, that we would be happy to hear them and work from them. But that said, the department was more so looking at, we could use the help. That said, with the budget constraints, that's what always makes the staff hesitant to make a recommendation, say, hey, bring on additional staff, because right now the general fund is tight.
Councilmember Owen.
So the general fund is tight, but some of these positions, we paid third parties out of the general fund, so if it economically is a wash, then
That's
whether
what-
they're permanent or whether they're outsourced doesn't matter. So the razor thin budget thing should be taken care of, and the fact that we won't do this is gonna cost us more money.
Yep, and that's what we're trying to look
From
at.
that perspective, I don't worry too much about the budget aspect, because we wouldn't wanna do this, so we're gonna spend more money internally than externally, so I'm not worried about that one. But on the construction management one, and since we might be putting money into a bucket that we're placing on the capital side today, because we're spending money out of the capital budget for consultants, and now we be put it in the operating, then I do think we have to evaluate on that one whether or not we're gonna get reimbursed. If we're not gonna get reimbursed for that one, then it sounds like that might be a showstopper to begin with, because we unfortunately gotta keep the money in the buckets.
Yeah,
That's
that makes perfect sense.
Okay, so now that we've had this discussion, what action are we taking going forward?
In that case, if the committee would be so obliged, we could be directed, the staff could be directed to look into that construction engineering position, see if it can be reimbursed, see what that role and responsibility could be, and then possibly tying it in with, could that person serve as an extra set of hands in the code enforcement world as well?
So again, when you say reimbursed, it's not gonna cost the city any money?
Well, it will cost the city money. It's more so reimbursed at the percentage at 80% of what we spend
I just want
towards
to,
the capital project.
when do you figure it out?
What we pay right now, I mean, it ranges, but it's over $100,000 typically for the construction engineering services that we have on our projects. We do get reimbursed on that at an 80% clip. That said, that's where I start to see if we can be reimbursed, that individual could technically add value back to the city and be a net positive when it comes to the balance sheet.
Councilmember Rambo.
Yeah, first of all, this was good work. I meant to say that at the beginning, but I am interested in making a motion, if that's appropriate, that we ask Tom to look into this. And the idea is that, or the theme would be, look at the dollars, come back with the rough dollars on whatever you've looked into, and then come back with a recommendation on the low hanging fruit, if you will. And if there is none, then we drop it right there. Can that be made into a motion, Amy, or?
Mhm.
Okay,
So,
All right,
so
so
your
that's fine.
motion is to proceed with, have Tom proceed with,
he seems to have a good handle on the dollars, and so I'm just saying, bring us back the cost and the potential benefits, and a recommendation as to what to pursue next,
okay. all
what
right,
position to pursue next.
Okay, very good. Second to that motion, do we have one? Councilmember Mean seconds. Okay, so does everybody understand what the motion is that has been made and seconded?
Yes.
All right, very good. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Very good. All right, moving on to item B, review of the fiscal year 2027 capital improvement plan. And City Administrator Lee, I believe we turn this back over to you again.
That is correct. Thank you, Chair. And switching gears on you a little bit, going from operating over to capital. Last month, we had a discussion of our capital improvement sales tax fund, but really was a more focused discussion on the capital scoring matrix. And from some pretty good feedback we got from the committee, there was a discussion of how our criteria had pretty much was weighted 18-1. 18 being the highest score multiplier, if you will, and going all the way down to, you want to scroll down, if you open that, yeah, perfect. 18 being the top, being the master plan, is it explicitly listed in the master plan being a major driver, all the way down to 1, which was more the recreational tourism aspect of whatever project you're considering. When looking at those factors, there was concern that we might be weighting the tourism side a little bit too low, the ones that are a little bit closer on the low end, considering, and it's a truthful fact there, that it is an 18x multiplier from master plan down to 1. So there was a request to keep the format relatively similar, but then to group the criteria and assign a weighting value to them to make it a little bit more evenly distributed. So the department did just that. Tonight, Exhibit A shows in the report, Exhibit A shows the former version, and the real difference is the top the top row that says rating of criteria. The second one, you'll see that it is based on a different set. Second. Yep. It says assigned group weight now. Main thing is, we went from 18 down to 1, so 18, 17, 16. Now we've grouped them into 5 different categories, and actually taking advantage of this opportunity to work within the system, we actually created a little bit of a framework for how we group them as well. So you'll notice that 5 are grouped together, then it's 6, then it's 2, 2, 3. I know that doesn't look perfect, but when we were looking at this, one of the issues that I had identified, the department identified, was that we didn't want to mess, and we didn't get direction to mess with the order. We didn't want to say, okay, well, to make it more convenient for the grouping, we'll move master plan 1 back or master plan up front. We didn't want to do that. So we created lines, if you will, where logically it made sense and we could group them based on a set of criteria. We came up with Exhibit B in the report that really kind of creates a tiered grouping system that we would hope we could solidify tonight, use this for 27, and then carry this forward as well. We do think that this is a really good way to approach it. Just adds another wrinkle and another explanation to our residents that may want to know how we work on our capital planning. So the first grouping includes the master plan, public safety, financial capacity impact, overall benefit to the city, and the 5-year strategic plan. Really, that's asking, and we were able to group that based on necessity. We call it our strategic foundation, and it really is answering the general question of, do we need to undertake this project, and why do we need to undertake it? Going to tier 2, and just sorry, real quick, back to that, that is assigned a weight of 12. So to make the 5 different groupings work, we wanted to use a weighting system that if you use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you could have the same situation that you had before. It's a little less, but the goal here is you have a 3x multiplier now from the top tier to the bottom tier, whereas before it was an 18x multiplier. So those bottom criteria are now getting a little bit of a jump in weight, while also recognizing that these strategic foundational criteria are still the most important. Just a note there. But then project readiness and sustainability, really asking the question, can the city responsibly complete this project and support the resulting asset over time? Really love these components that we added in last year, but the ongoing expenses, I think, is a really important question to ask ourselves. What are the maintenance costs we're adding to the ledger by adding this asset? The urgency and timing, do we have, a legal issue coming up? Is that a safety impact? Is there a trip hazard that is present? There's multiple factors that can lead to that, but what is the urgency looking like? The external funding feasibility, that's always nice to have too, because if you have an offset from a different, either through our TIP program that we apply to, or if you have a grant source that can help fund a large percentage of it. First of all, it'll obviously boost that score for that criteria, but it'll also boost the financial capacity impact score as well.
Could we switch maybe to looking at Exhibit B versus this one? I think we've all kind of conceptually understand that one, but
Yep.
like looking at this one so we can see the prioritization philosophy with it might make it a little bit better.
Yeah, that sounds good. Sorry, I didn't notice that.
That's right.
So we're on feasibility and we were at external funding feasibility. So going back with that, you'll get if you have a grant that's covering, in our case for the TIP, we can have an 80% match from the federal government on those projects. That's obviously going to make it score a little bit higher. It also actually benefits the financial capacity, which is part of tier 1 and gets a 12 if it as a multiplier. That is not looking at just the cost of the project as a whole. It actually compares it a little. It takes another step forward and looks at of the amount of revenue that the city has in its capital improvement sales tax fund, which is approximately $3 million each year, of what amount we're planning to get, what percentage of that is taken up by this project. So it tries to account for projects that take the whole capital budget in one fell swoop. Where it's beneficial is that if you have grant funding associated with it, you'll actually see that represented in both the financial capacity and you'll see that score impacted, but you'll also see that the score for the tier 2 and the 10 that would go with it, the 10x multiplier, they would actually have 2 beneficial pieces there. Once again, giving high priority to projects that, take as little city dollars as possible while also, forwarding its objectives. So just a note there, risk mitigation kind of goes with the urgency and timing just a bit, but once again, risk mitigation is more so, is there a serious issue out in the field that we're addressing with this? And kind of ties directly with urgency and timing too. City-owned infrastructure, this was an important factor that was added in last year. When we were discussing this was an important component brought up by the council. Just making sure that future capital projects, given that we only do bring in about $3 million each year, we leverage that typically each year to get grant funding through the TIP program, to make it stretch our dollars further. The reason why we bring this up is that the council wanted to make sure that we have some type of way to grade the project based on, is it in our right of way? If the city owns the asset, it's gonna get a higher score in that criteria versus something that is not on the city's right of way. So there are projects that we've done in the past. We've worked on the 100 work. There's an argument to be made that we actually attracted MoDOT to come out here and do a lot of work when we did that. We have worked with our partners to improve the accessibility of the city. That said, this at least has a little factor that just controls for, are we contributing to a project that's outside of the city's right of way, meaning i.e. that's not the legal obligation of the city to make sure it's perfectly aligned, fixed, whatever it might be. Doesn't necessarily mean the project's not a good idea, but it just controls for that factor. The legal implications question, very important too. This was a staff recommendation from last year, but it's really asking, and the thing that we keep running into, how much right of way do you need to acquire? Is it controversial right of way? Do we see issues with acquiring it? Is that gonna affect the timeline? They're very practical questions of, if we do this project, what happens next? And it's trying to control for that up front, so we can at least identify it. All right, then moving to tier 3, which then gets a priority multiplier score of 8. It's just a validation. It would be better to say community validation, but we call it stakeholder input, and it does this project have the public support of both the business community and the residents of the city. So if we have a project that is being asked about by residents consistently, it's a constant item that's brought up in public comment or just through individual conversations with the residents. And it's been a big issue for a long time. Obviously, the community has communicated that they want to address it. That's going to score higher there. And typically what we'll do is we'll review former public comment cards, things along those lines, the feedback from open houses for similar projects to kind of see how the community has responded to previous conversations about this type of thing, or has anything been explicitly stated by the community asking for this today. That's just one. And then the other is the business needs, economic development benefits of it as well. That one is a little bit more complicated, but if it's something that the business community has asked for, typically what the city does from the economic development support position, the best thing we can do is provide the infrastructure necessary to support the business. One thing we were able to do is we extended the sewer line through the neighborhood improvement district and through the town center sewer district down Manchester, provided a lot of businesses down that street with sanitary sewer, and has kind of opened up some additional possibilities for them. But also the city has built some streets here in the town center area that have served and helped serve a lot of the businesses within the community. So those are just examples, but overall, if the business community is expressing a strong interest in a certain project being done, whether it be to help their, get people to their, one thing that we've talked about consistently is the Main Street extension. Businesses have mentioned as well that there's strong support for it. It'll help pick up some traffic, provide another route for folks to take, and it will help guide folks actually through the center of the town center, if you will. So that's tier 4. That's I meant to say tier 3, stakeholder input. Going to tier 4, it's just more so getting at some additional, still important, but supplemental benefits or drawbacks. We had this titled as community systems impacts, and the question we're trying to ask here, and there's a typo, it says does, we'll fix that. Does this project address a demonstrated community need or have public support? And that includes whether it affects the environment, is it a stormwater improvement, et cetera? Is it something that residents have brought up and it actually addresses the issue at hand, and also the traffic impact, which typically plays a large role in all of our projects, but can be encompassed in some of the earlier criteria. And it's just another added bonus if we can see improvement to our traffic flow, then that's going to be a good thing, and we want to make sure we assign it correctly. So that gets a 6. And then the last one is just a community enrichment and appeal. We kind of subtitled it the community experience, and does it enhance the city's character, improve the quality of life for its residents? And that's where we can get into some of the more still important, but less so than whether or not it's the main goal in the master plan. We have culture and host. Does it support and help identify the city's culture and historical significance? Does it help support a historical project? Community morale and beautification, we've done that before on Route 100. We've done landscaping to beautify the area. And then the tourism and recreational impact, that is also a helpful tool. Does the project help, draw more folks to Wildwood? One being Route 66. It's used, some of the efforts we've done there, it helps draw individuals from across the region down to Wildwood to check out the area. And also just frequent some of the businesses along that as well, which the businesses have communicated that they are appreciative of those efforts. So just to tie into an example. That said, the department's presenting tonight the framework, and the goal is tonight to get the committee's support. If there's any questions or any issues, we're happy to address them here. And then the goal would be to come back and bring the completed version B, so exhibit B with the groupings. We'll use that for this year's analysis, and we'll have that back to you in September, and then we'll be working towards budget in October. Thank you. And if there's any questions, please.
Questions for Mr. Lee? Councilmember Means.
So there's two frameworks, the 18-1 and then I believe, or 18-1 and then the 12-4. Both frameworks are gonna be analyzed and then brought back, is that right?
Yep, so when we do, the good news here is when we go through and score it, it doesn't actually change the actual score that it gets, the 0, 3, 5, or 9. Where it's gonna actually show up is the overall priority score at the end. So really, it just messes with the formula that spits out the very end total. That said, we can compare those two to see how it differentiates.
But he was asking if we were planning on using both methodologies for
No,
27.
No, I wanted to see if it was gonna be compared.
Oh, okay.
That was something that given that it's not like we had to do double the work either. We can just put it in, and then that would be more than fine. That was actually listed here too, that we'd be happy to, when completing this, bring back both versions. We'll have, tonight, we're gonna request that we start with the grouped version as that's the one we're going to use, but we'll definitely include a copy of the 18-1 to show those two differences. We'll just make sure to kind of de-highlight it, if you will, so you can have that comparison.
Councilmember Kranz?
So this basically is the work you're gonna get done next year, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is this going to get done, you think? Pretty sure?
Yep.
What if something comes up, we're totally unaware of? How do you deal with that?
If there's a project that comes up, the council has the authority
Okay.
to change the budget if needed. If there's something that comes up in 27, where we have to address it immediately, we would bring that to the council's attention, and then there would be a request to amend the budget to do that project.
So how do you get, if you have something going on this, how do you do that? If I have an item I wanna put on this, is this the
That-
council?
This could be, that's tonight, if there's any request to have something scored, if the council, also just so the committee knows and the council knows, we had opened this up last year, but if the council or committee members want to also score themselves, the projects listed here, happy to provide the Excel document that has the working equation too, so you can see it as you fill it out, and the scoring rubric, if you will, too. So more than welcome to do that. And if there's a project, then with the chair's permission, that was also an idea tonight, is if there's anything that needs to be scored, then to bring it up now, and we could have that included in the review.
Councilman Bro?
So I think what Mr. Councilman Means was referring to is, I think last time when we talked about this, we talked about maybe having you bring back the 2026,
Oh, the version?
the version, and putting it into this matrix. Is that easy to do or
Update,
difficult?
no, it shouldn't. So you're just saying take the scores from 2026 and update them using the new matrix?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that. That's
Just so
not,
we
that's
can-
not a
We
problem.
can look at 26, 25, what we did in had scored for 26 under the
Yeah.
new methodology, and see where it changed things to make sure
Make sure it's
that would
aligned.
help us understand, do we like the impact of the new model before we go all in on it?
Gotcha. That makes
Is that
sense.
what you were asking?
Thank you, yeah.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Good. So City Administrator Lee, what you're looking for from us tonight is a motion for you to proceed
Proceed with the weighted grouping methodology, the revised methodology, we can call it. And then also tonight too, if there was any, this is kind of like the last call, if there's any projects that you would want, we have the projects listed that we plan to review for 27. If there's anything that isn't included that you want included in that review, staff's open to hearing that today. We can talk about it tonight, and then if the committee agrees, we can have that on the list as well.
Okay. Would somebody like to make that motion? Okay, so motion made by Councilmember Owen to proceed as suggested by City Administrator Lee. Would somebody like to second, please? Second by Councilmember Means. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
Can I add one note on that, Mr. Rutherford?
Absolutely.
Just wanted to say thanks to the committee. Appreciate it. And I wanted to thank last year's committee too for working through this. It's been a process to get done, but last year we saw some really, we had to make some tough decisions. Obviously, we created the unfunded needs list that we continue to use as a repository of projects for future consideration. But generally speaking, we had a ton of projects budgeted in our 5-year capital a couple years back. And this was kind of the tool with the committee and the council's endorsement was allowed us to really readjust and align it better with the community, and just the department appreciates the feedback and work that the council's done with us to kind of perfect this process.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item C, which is municipal building access and site improvements. It's an action item here, and I think City Administrator Lee, you may have alluded to some of these things on Monday night.
Yep.
If I remember correctly.
That is.
So turning things back over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So a couple things in this report tonight. Did just want to provide a general update on some of the efforts we've been doing here to make some improvements to City Hall. We do have a decent chunk of change, 300,000 budgeted for fiscal year 2026 for improvements within the City Hall. So that does include a bunch of projects that are going on behind the scenes right now. And once we have, bid documents in and everything like that and actual bids on the table, we'll be bringing those back to committee. So just wanted to give an update there, but some.
Before you, it's 300,000, I'm looking at what we just talked about previously, so I'm seeing 150.
That's for 2027.
Okay.
So that this
So we got
is
300,000 in the budget.
for 2026. Yep. Yeah, so that said,
We cut our budget in half for next year.
no, with this, we had before this last year, we had very minuscule amounts in that fund. I think it was 50,000 last year, and before that it was, we created the fund in 2025 to start addressing some of the issues we have here in City Hall. I mean, quite frankly, it's on the list tonight, and just some of the updates, but we've got a leak that continues to be a problem in the back hallway of the police station. We've done, 2 engineering analyses in the past, 5 years, trying to look at the issue. We've had multiple contractors come out to assess and see if there's a way that they can see that what could be the problem. There's multiple opinions now thinking that the sidewalk might be the issue. So there's a lot of ideas in the air, if you will. And we have a current engineering firm looking at removing that entire basin in the back of City Hall completely away from City Hall. So there's a couple things we're doing. That's gonna be if that comes back and we're able to properly do it and store more water upstream in the Village Green property, and then effectively get rid of the water storage right next to the building's foundation. That's gonna be an expensive project. And in 2020, not 27, but 2028, we have a decent chunk of change. I think it's almost $1 million budgeted to do a major project like that. It was more of a placeholder. We don't have the exact cost. But the idea is in 2028, we should have that analysis done and we should be able to address it. That said, before, just to make a note, we had some projects, as you'll see in the report tonight, that we needed to head off this year after kind of spending some time identifying them. And the plan is, we're moving our way to have that done. That said, it was almost taking a look at, finish these next year, make sure any that didn't happen got readdressed. And if any project might be, sitting there and not completed this year, then the department will bring back that. It's not gonna be pushed off the table. We'll probably come back and say, hey, could we adjust that because we're not spending it this year? Yeah, but one of these two, just to kind of get into the meat and potatoes of it. We have the Village Green obviously built on the west side of the municipal building. You might bring it up. I don't think I have a picture of that. Aerial of the Main Street, please. I can kind of describe it first and then the next one. Share that drawing. The drive aisle on the adjacent to City Hall on the west side, it did not have the same improvements that were done to the park property. And over time, it's, the whole parking lot is eventually going to need to be resurfaced. We're making sure that the construction work on Village Green gets done, but that will be worked into the plans. after we've kind of concluded our construction traffic that would need to come back and access the area. That said, there's the sidewalk on the west side of the building that's adjacent to the drive aisle. The picture there, you can see that kind of a tree lawn there next to a sidewalk that's on the west side of City Hall. There's a pretty steep grade change between walking, if you're walking laterally across that sidewalk, maybe from the concert venue over to City Hall, maybe you're cutting across. There is a nice little divot that occurs there. It is a BMP that's been identified.
It's supposed to be a drainage swale,
Yeah,
is what it's supposed to be,
In between there.
yep.
right, between the drive and the sidewalk. It's a very small area.
Rick, did you want to add anything on that too? I mean,
Well, it doesn't provide good access for pedestrians accessing Village Green, particularly at night. I think that's the concern.
yes.
It's, you know, the question is really what to do with it moving forward. Do we try to make it safer? Do we spend money on it in the short term? What are the options and to avoid it being a hazard, frankly?
Yeah, so that, and what Rick is saying is that during the concert's taking place here. Typically what happens, there's a street light here, but you have bushes here that kind of make it obstructs the light from being able to properly, give illumination to the entire sidewalk. What typically happens at night though, when the concert concludes, is that folks start departing, but typically what you'd want to see is that everyone goes in a single file line and walks on out, but that's not typically how the concert ends. It's a large conglomerate of humans that just move to the east. And a lot of folks try to cut across this area here, this swale. And what tends to happen is there's a pretty steep cutoff from the street here down into the swale. And then as you get up to the sidewalk, it's a pretty nasty lip and someone could get their foot stuck up on it.
What is the height or what is the measurement that we're talking?
4 inches down and 4 inches.
It could very, at some points, it could very well be 3-4 inches. Yeah, so
Okay.
it's a pretty steep change. If you put it in the center of this, it's probably even more. At the end of the day, when you're walking, and feel free to take a look, when you're walking this way, you could potentially get clipped on this piece of the sidewalk and trip. And not a good thing. And what we're trying to do is, can we address it in the short term? Is there, obviously we can work in some long-term improvements to it. You can kind of see it here. But before, this wasn't necessarily as big of an issue because the sidewalk was very underutilized. At the end of the day, there weren't all too many people walking that direction and crossing over. There wasn't really a need, but since we've started to have concerts there, we've seen that kind of additional traffic, and along with just the recreational park use that happens every day, there's more people that use it to kind of cut across. At night, that's where the biggest concern lies. In the daytime, people can tend to typically see it and see that is clearly, it's attempting to be a swale there. But the idea that was presented to us from our contractor that potentially address this issue is, there are a couple trip hazards within the sidewalk itself, so we would want to level those out. But then going in and actually adding a gabion rock in between to really better define that swale. So that would change kind of the functional layout of the City Hall building. In that green area where the grass is, you'd practically be adding a gabion rock there to align with the swale. That said, that would almost serve as more of a barrier to folks that are walking back or walking to not cut across. The idea eventually would be as well, you have this sidewalk and you have the ADA entrance to the park over to the right. We would also potentially add in the future striping that goes, there's like a center, Destin, I don't think it goes back there if it's okay, if
It
not.
does
but
not.
yeah, in that center aisle there for the parking lot, there is a small lip that was constructed as part of the park. The idea would be to have almost a crosswalk striped to that center aisle, and then you'd have it striped over to the ADA. So we'd have a better guidance for folks to come in and then get to the park if they need a wheelchair accessible entrance. But also, if you have the gabion rock there almost serving as an obstruction, those folks would be somewhat forced to go around, and it would no longer be treated as kind of a cut through. That's been the bigger concern at night. But I guess I can answer any questions on that first. And then-
Scott, yeah,
Yes.
Gabion would replace one trip hazard with another trip hazard. It just absolutely would. And so I'm the last person in here to advocate for reducing green space of any kind, but we have an opportunity there to just kind of slide the whole sidewalk over, put in a curb and have it nicely curbed on both sides and have a bit wider sidewalk to provide better access. Because a curb, people understand, whereas a Gabion rock ditch, it's gonna cause problems. And so rather than being 4 feet wide, maybe it could be 6 feet wide. We gain a foot on the opposite side or something like that. I'm not trying to redesign on the fly. I'm just saying, mostly suggesting that the Gabion would be a problem for sure. And we might as well clean up the east side of the road and make it as nice looking as the west side.
And Rick,
How wide is that distance between the pavement and the sidewalk?
I'd say 3 feet-ish.
So I guess I tend to agree with Councilman Rambo. I see putting the rock down, people walking up to it and saying, oh, with one step I can make it across that and
Hope they
then
have.
kids
Through the
kids
ankle.
trip
But-
over
but-
it. It's gonna be create one set of problems for another.
Yep.
Is it, Bruce, is there any issue with, I mean, obviously the cost would be bigger, but the BMP component, is there some consideration there too, Rick?
So yeah, and we'll have to figure that out, but the stormwater BMP, it's supposed to collect the stormwater in that area and filtrate it into a bed, a storage bed, literally underneath that sidewalk, so that has to be considered. Either we'd have to relocate that, or if we keep it in place, the thought that keeps coming to my mind is permeable concrete, either in terms of a sidewalk or a widened driveway with a curb. So that we retain the ability to use to suck the stormwater up and get it into the drainage field that's there right now.
I think you can engineer it better than your concept. I mean, I really think it's an opportunity for
If
you.
we could clean it
Yeah.
up and make it safer, it would cost some money. That's the downside.
That would be,
So there's some sort of drain basin underneath the sidewalk where the water's supposed to collect into?
Yes, there's,
So if that's the case, could you go back to having the sidewalk with water inlets that flush the water from the street into this water basin? Kind of like almost like a drain, but it's just draining it into the water basin?
Channel drain or something.
some way to get the water into that area would be what we'd have to determine, whether it's permeable concrete or some other means to get it into that.
and I mean, that usage on that side isn't, I think permeable concrete could be a good candidate there. It's not, it would get used, but it's worked decent in off Manchester too, so that it's an option.
It's an option,
Permeable
yeah.
concrete, sorry.
It's concrete.
Porous concrete, it's a specialty concrete that allows water to drain right through it. We've used it with mixed success. It's not really available in the industry still, but it's a really nice, if it works, it's a great tool because it just sucks the water up. Typically, it's an option for stormwater handling, and when we do it, we put a 3-foot deep bed of granular material underneath it, which stores the water and cleans it. But it just sucks right through it.
So, Rick, I can't help but key in on the word you used, phrase mixed success. So it sounds like, so what's your confidence level on that product?
Well, so we used it on the most recent Manchester streetscape project that was completed in 2020. And we had a variety of resultant finishes to the concrete. It's not smooth concrete. It's not something you want to rollerblade on. We got a few complaints, but not many. And mainly it was, I want to rollerblade and I can't because it's rough and it's not, it doesn't feel, if it's not finished as well as it should, it won't feel as solid underfoot. And that's the downside. So if you walk on it, you may not like it, but practically speaking, it works for a sidewalk. It's not hard concrete. It's
How's
porous.
it gonna work when people are stepping on it in the dark and mass coming out of a concert?
Oh, it would
I think it'd be fine in that regard.
It's just more so, it's a little bit more tacky, if you will, like you can really kind of feel it on your feet, it's a little bit more rough. That said, it does function as a sidewalk, it's just not as finished, if you will, it's not as great as
It
finished.
doesn't provide as much of a finished product. It doesn't compare with the nice new concrete we placed in the village green.
Okay.
Yes.
More non-slip though, right?
It definitely more non-slip, there's
That's
an
a good
argument to be
thing.
made there.
Councilmember Rambo.
Yeah, especially on a hill, I think, it makes, it's an appropriate, place to use it, but I wanted to ask Rick, there are numbers painted on that sidewalk, like 2.3. The top one is 6.2, as I recall. What the heck is that? Because it looks like it's a little buckled and we have to work on it anyway. What's been done over there?
Well, that's the work of Scott Hummel, our street superintendent. He was checking the cross slope of the sidewalk that's there.
Okay,
right
yeah,
now.
that's what I figured it was slope. Okay,
I'm pretty sure that he was noting the cross slope in
Which makes it
percent.
not
So-
Okay.
ADA compliant.
So, right, so typically ADA, you need to be under 2% for a cross slope. And so I think he was finding that it was much steeper to that. And I think that's what's going on is it's been washed out a little bit. And that material is coming down towards the street and then the cross slope has become more steep.
And kind of going back to it, I mean, tonight we were planning on providing like we have a cost estimate, but it would include that Gabion rock. I think from the committee's feedback tonight, creating that barrier may not be the best approach, and we may need to look into having whether or not the impervious asphalt could work there, and come back to the committee. But main thing is we have a concert coming up. The plan is gonna be to have, an officer kind of designated there at the end of the concert, just make sure people are watching their step. We'll have a cone or two out there, but we don't want to necessarily close the sidewalk. That said, we're gonna be expediting the review and work to get this done, just given the amount of people that are coming and going from the Village Green at night during that the peak time after the concerts. So
Is there anything we can do to light it up a little bit better after the concerts to put some, temporary portable lighting there?
Do you have any flashlights?
we could look into see if we have some additional lighting that
Councilmember Owen, you and I can stand up.
that we could have. And the thing is, the officer, we talked to the captain on this too, is that after the concert, there's already officers in the field, but as the concert kind of comes to an end, an officer will make their way over to there. They'll have their light. They'll just kind of be guiding people, telling them hopefully to go around. The hope is that they go around the actual the stage structure. They come down the ADA ramp, and it kind of gives you a natural. At that point, you kind of naturally would go to the sidewalk instead of trying to cross over. But we have seen time and time again that folks just cut across because it's the easiest path, of least resistance, and the biggest concern we have is just given that it is a decent change. The thing is, it being designed to be a swale wasn't probably the best idea. A swale at that location was the best idea in the first place, given that you had a sidewalk just adjacent to it, if you ever had plans.
Probably have never, very seldom got used before the Village Green was.
That is correct. Originally worked, but Village Green has kind of highlighted a deficiency.
So one thing I would say too, as we work to fix that, if there's a way we can use that part for replacing, if we do this permeable concrete or regular concrete, if we can make that section of it at least ADA compliant, will that get us in compliance overall? Is that a wide enough section that then we would have ADA compliance, even though half the sidewalk is gonna be out of compliance?
I think the goal would be to make it all ADA compliant. So if
We
it's
have to dig it up and start over.
possibly, yeah. If the cross slope is too steep, we need to address it.
That would be ideal, would be make it completely ADA compliant.
So, Mr. Brown, is and I'm not gonna hold you to it, but doing the impervious concrete, is that gonna take the current project costs and, like roughly, do we have like a rough understanding of what this may cost now? I just wanna make sure that we're gripping the. No, not 2 million.
Well, I would say we've expanded the scope a bit from what T Hill quoted.
Yeah.
So sounds like we might be putting back more sidewalk than we have now. So there's more square footage, plus if we do permeable, and then that's gonna drive the price up as well.
Was the 16,000 gonna replace that whole sidewalk?
So the quote itself was going to take pretty much that whole line right there, was gonna replace that section of sidewalk. So here was also addressing, yes, it was taking apart pretty much that whole line of sidewalk and then also installing the Gabion rock in between the two. And then readjusting the drainage that we have as they were ripping it up. If they found the drainage problem, they would be able to address it there. And also the full quote, there's another 4,400 addressed a sidewalk entrance making on the Village Green side, bringing that down to be a ramp to make it, you know, pretty much we'd add additional crosswalks. That does not include striping in this proposal too, then we'd probably have to come back and do that later. But
That
it's,
shouldn't be too expensive, it's trying.
that should be, that can be done, you know, relatively.
I also noticed that your 26,625 didn't include $3,800 or whatever that was.
Yep, that one, and thank you for calling that out. That cost is for another sidewalk concern on the other side of the building that is
So
not.
before we move on to that, Councilman Rambo.
Yeah,
had a
yeah,
question.
very quickly. We decided that the Gabion Rock idea was infeasible, which sort of negates this quote. And so I'm not feeling so bad about adding to the cost because you're fixing some other problems. You're fixing a drainage issue. It's very unsightly right there. This is our brand new park. We can clean all that up. We can make it ADA compliant, improve the drainage and so on and so forth, sort of in one fell swoop. And so it's not, we're gonna talk about other issues before we make a motion on approving this sort of en masse, right? I mean, it's not, you're not looking for a motion just for this part, or are you?
Tonight, we were really just focusing it. The other stuff was more just giving it updates, but the other, and if there's any.
The stairway out front?
Stairway out front was the next thing to talk about.
Okay.
But if there's gonna be, like, since this is kind of a drastic step difference than the Gabion Rock install, and we could entertain a motion for this and then do a second for the staircase issue.
So that's up to you.
Councilman Rowan, you were starting to make a comment, but I kind of interrupted because I didn't want to.
I'm good. It's on the staircase.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So we've had no injuries so far here, right?
There was what brings this up, a lady did, she didn't get hurt in a severe case, but she did scrape herself up and broke her glasses by catching the lip of the road, so we're wanting to address this as soon as possible.
Okay, so.
We've marked it with cones and we've called attention to it. We'll have an officer there, but we definitely, there's a set of urgency on the project.
I mean, for the next concert, can you just stake it and ribbon it to kind of force people around it?
We can explore
Like
that.
three
There may
foot-
be
3 foot
some,
high stakes with ribbon across it.
some
and
folks
cost
may
of ribbon.
complain about the aesthetics. I know we can't care about aesthetics when it comes to safety. Right now, we have some cones out there. The idea, in the daytime, it really hasn't been all too bad because folks typically take the time to walk around it. It is the nighttime where I've seen it.
One thing, if we can just light it up, you know, get a little portable generator with a portable light or something and put some light on it when people leave, I think that might get us through until we can get it fixed. Sounds to me like probably the problem was the person couldn't see it because it was dark. If we light it up, that might get us through, we can fix it.
Tell me, is the stairway by the Mayor's Grove well lighted? I'm sorry, I'm jumping in
No,
here,
that's all right.
but we're talking about safety now. And I'm wondering because at certain events that I've been to, people use that stairway a lot. They know it's there and, oh, this is a shortcut. And
Yeah,
so-
it's relatively well lighted. You got the lights down at the carport area. You have the lights, the kind of the auxiliary lights coming from the back parking lot. I've been back there at night too, and it's, you can see, but it definitely does have, that wall kind of cuts off the light a little bit. It's
Yeah.
not perfectly lighted.
Okay, we probably should look at that as well.
Dustin's gonna be checking lights tonight, so he can go check it out.
Did you get that one though? Where are you?
All right, City Administrator Lee, you may.
Yeah, so in that case, I guess the department, if the committee so desires, we could request a motion now for just this part. We'll break into the next part. But consistent with, hey, look into the bigger picture here of possibly using some type of impervious rock, asphalt to kind of close the gap here, still have the drainage be there and address any issues, but don't use the Gabion rock is the main thing. Kind of the committee, the city team's taken from this, and we can come back with an alternative solution and what that could cost at a subsequent meeting.
So would somebody like to make that motion?
Sure, yeah.
Councilman Rambo makes the motion to proceed with the investigation of using the impervious materials. Second by Councilman Owen. Any discussion?
So is this gonna get taken care of or we're gonna talk about it some more later?
We'll probably have to come back with a quote for doing the
Go to
impervious
council?
surface. Yeah, that'll have to go to council. So what we'll do in the interim is for concert, we'll light it up. We're obviously there on site, so we'll be able to control that environment a little bit more. During the day, we'll probably have the cone continue to be there. And at the same time, we'll need to just make sure that we may entertain something like the staking or something along those lines in the interim, just to call attention to it so folks don't try to cross.
It's just for my benefit and learning. Is this gonna have to come back to us, then get approved by council?
It in theory should, but if the committee were, it could go to council too if it was of an urgent concern, if the mayor's permission to put it on the agenda. But typically, our plan would be to come back to this committee, and then typically our meetings are before the council meeting. It's the week before. This month's a little different because of the election. But if we were to have this at a committee meeting, we could have a quick turnaround to have that subsequently.
Sounds like a concert series is all gonna be done and over before we
It-
get this taken care of either way. So maybe it's not gonna become such an urgent issue because we're gonna miss the urgent deadline and then we can do a normal program.
Yep, and for back to school, obviously we'll have the cops there and the main thing, but what we've been looking at too is just with the Celebrate Wildwood event, and this is what really adds the urgency, we may need to entertain, some type of staking or something like that, or maybe we can come up with a more creative way to kind of exclude that zone, because the plan is to have practically vendors and things like that in that back parking lot. You'll also have vendors in the front. You'll have the concert area, of course, filled in. You'll have the bounce houses on the park property. So it's gonna be kind of a full-on system working around City Hall. So one thing that we may just want to call to attention, there's gonna be a lot more foot traffic on that section of sidewalk. So we might have to do something to be creative to kind of block it off for the time being.
Okay.
All right. Did we vote on that motion?
We did not vote on that motion yet. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. City Administrator, back to you.
Thank you, Chair. All right, so the second one we wanted to talk about today is been a pesky issue we've been dealing with since the building was built. But more recently was just something that, was part of our program for the 2026 year. And we wanted to start looking at how could we even address this issue, because it does look like an expensive fix regardless. If you notice when coming into the building on the north side of the building, the staircase in front, the building was built, with a large footprint. It's 2 stories, so you needed to fill in a lot of space, and it covers a large stretch of Main Street. Thank you, Justin, that's helpful. That's the staircase now, and the issue that we have currently is that this staircase, and you can't necessarily see it from this angle, but over here, you have the road that was built before this building was constructed, and then we built the building. The building's set at a lower grade than the road. So this staircase, ADA is over here, you can access and get up there and go around. But this is imagine this being a very short lip, and then all of a sudden it just slowly gets bigger to the point where now it's 2 steps over here.
The steps are different
The
heights.
steps are different heights.
It's weird.
It's weird.
It looks dangerous.
It looks, it's weird. Say it's dangerous, but it's not the way that most folks would want to see it. There is some liability there that the department's identifying as, hey, let's try to knock this out, figure out a solution. So
Aren't we gonna end up with stairs on the sidewalk if we fix this?
the stairs on the other sidewalk.
No, sidewalk going in front of the stairs. Because how do you change, anyway.
Well,
I
we
mean,
have some conceptual drawings that could in theory be used. What the problem is that you had the building stretched so far out here that there's no way to do it while lining it up with the road. So where this does it is it makes it a more defined area. It's gonna level out a piece of it. And there's 2 options. One that the department somewhat believes is a little bit cleaner looking. Can you zoom in, Destin, to the actual photographs here? So this is the solution that a rendering that are. Sure, I get my bearings. Okay, so this here is a 1-step solution that puts in 2 planters, if you will, and kind of carves out that area that was shown before as just one large slab of concrete with multiple joints, and kind of creates more of a landscaped area to guide folks up and down. And then with the 1-step, you pretty much account for that grade change by installing these 2 flower boxes. And the other side, this is a different solution, not as this personally is a little bit tricky as well, because you have, once again, 3 different options for stairs, and which is what we're currently having right now. It helps call them out more definitively. In that case, middles 2, 1, and 3. But this solution here seem to account for it and then have it be consistent. So there's not an individual that maybe was watching a friend or someone walk up, they see him go down 2, they think 2, and then they go down to 3. That said, when looking at it, and Rick, if there's any disagreement here, let me know, but this was some of the solution, this is the solution that the department was somewhat looking at as a possible idea to address this issue. It's not gonna be cheap. We're gonna have to rip up some sidewalk to do so. And it's gonna take a little bit more planning to get an agreement and an agreement, get some quotes on it, but we wanted to first bring this to the committee's attention and say, hey, is this a proper way to address that staircase? Do we think that this is the right direction? If so, we can start executing towards getting bid documents put together on it, and then go out, get a cost estimate, come back and see if this is what we want to do. There's not necessarily anybody that has submitted claims or any negative comments about it, but it is something that's been brought to our attention by other council members. It's been noted by staff. It's something that we've kind of always wanted to take a look at, but
Yeah, this is where the public enters their building.
is correct.
Yeah, you gotta have it.
Has there been any falls?
There hasn't been any falls that have been recorded as a claim in the last 5 years, but nonetheless, it is something that former council members that have been on the council for a long time had relayed to the department that this was an issue even back when we opened, that the insurance company was a little bit skeptical of even covering us. That was what was claimed. That said, right now, our current insurance does not have any exception for these stairs. If someone fell, it'd be covered. That said, it's something that we want to look at a little bit further. This is what we're trying to do, but
Address it.
with it being the primary entrance to City Hall, the vast majority of residents that come here each day, they come in through the first floor. I think that having that be one option, not having, a couple, even if you have to make it a little bit different looking out there, it is well worth it in the sense that you won't have anybody tripping and falling. And where the department really gets concerned is that no one had any incidents necessarily, but we had a large voter turnout at the election that was hosted. The city was willing to allow folks to come in and vote early and also vote during the day of the actual voting day, on election day, but there was a large line going out the building and then curling around, which is fine. Sidewalk can accommodate it, but just given the amount of mobility that takes place right at that step, people moving around,
Something's gonna happen.
it's bound. Yeah,
I'll make
bound.
that motion.
Okay, so what is your motion?
Is to move forward with these designs to discuss and bring to city council eventually, I guess.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Councilmember Albert seconds. Okay, so now we're open for discussion and comment. Councilmember Owen.
So I'm just not understanding how, quite honestly, how when the sidewalk behind all this is sloped. And the reason we have the stairs that graduate down is because the sidewalk is sloped behind it. So you got these pretty drawings, but the sidewalk still slopes behind it. So you just created like a lip here or something. This is not doable. Neither one of these are doable.
Well, I would say they are concepts, and I would agree with you that there needs to be a little more work done to show how much we'll have to warp from the sidewalk to the step. To do it right now, the goal is to get rid of the partial steps.
Yes.
Either configuration, if we have 1 flight or 3 flights, but to do that, I think they're gonna be less wide. So the actual stair is gonna be narrower to allow it to tie in and then warp back. So I think.
I think you're gonna have slope on here. There has to be. I mean, it's just, you gotta conceptualize this. It's very clear that behind it is sloped and now you've made these visually level. It's not practical to do it that way. So we've got to figure out what we're gonna do with the sidewalk, because you almost are gonna have to add a step on the sidewalk somewhere behind it to get that sidewalk flat, to come to flat stairs. So, I mean,
Well, the other thing, you have to work it in though, because you have the ADA entrance on the side, but then also the flat side that kind of builds into it. But the idea here is the concept of getting it at least, and if it's not perfect, I mean, we'll have to keep working at it, but taking it from right now that it goes from like 0.2 of a stair to 2 stairs, that the one side to the other, figuring out a way to make it one step or two step, whatever it might be, but having it be one set so no one is confused, and if it has to be at a somewhat of an angle,
So you're gonna, all of a sudden now you're gonna have slopes. Anywhere in there, you're gonna have funny slopes and funny stairs. So let's not go from
I don't see it.
one bad,
I don't see it.
one thing that looks bad
I
to one thing that's just now looks bad a different
You
way.
can't tell that from just looking at it here.
It just conceptually, I mean,
Well,
you can tell.
I'm saying, I can't see it looking at there. How can you?
It's just, you can't. I mean, this is behind that, you're making this look like it's all gonna be nice and flat right here.
It is a
But
concept.
behind there, the sidewalk
So-
slopes.
So let me step into the conversation here for just a moment. And let's go to our expert on staff and get his observations here.
He looked at me when I said that, like.
No, he makes a valid comment, and
Yeah.
I'm not disregarding it whatsoever. We need to look more carefully at that very issue. I think the way it's portrayed might be a little bit optimistic in terms of the trade-off. You know, the goal is to get rid of the partial step, end up with a design with either one step or two steps, and then warp it back. So there will be a warping from the sidewalk to the step. And yes, it might be actually steeper than it is now in that area. So what is the maximum slope we would be happy with? So there needs to be a little bit more design done and nail down those elevations and figure that out. I think we just wanted to get some feedback. Is it important to develop a plan that we can build in one, you know, the full step versus the partial step option that we have in place?
So I guess what I'm gonna do is interpret this then as a very rough initial concept that requires more development before we
From
can
my
really
perspective, it does, yes.
make a judgment on what it is. that
Well,
we're
that's the
looking at.
motion is move forward and
Yeah.
just further discussion.
and we just didn't want to spend, keep working with the consultant on it.
Take it in
decide
for-
it.
Councilman
I just think we're just gonna spend a bunch of engineering money to find out that we're gonna go from one bad option to another bad option.
Yeah.
But
Given the two
maybe we can
grades.
figure
But
that out.
that doesn't happen.
I'm more confident than you are in that,
I just think we're gonna get to where it's gonna cost $250,000, and we're gonna spend $250,000 to get this entrance changed. When we have a $3 million capital budget, but if we needed, we need to go do a little bit of work to figure that out, that's fine.
Be
but-
$500,000.
So anyway, I was going to suggest that you kind of try to focus on, we've already made a motion to look at this. Try to focus on concept B, because having one step that's consistent and so forth, it seems to make more sense. And also having those planners that offers us a better opportunity to satisfy Phil, because the sidewalk can slope behind that planter and virtually flatten out, which I think was probably the idea anyway. And so it can easily be done. My comment was going to be, I like the planners better on concept B for an additional reason. That this horsetail out here in the front, scouring rush, it looks like hell. It's horrible. The planters look gorgeous. We have done an excellent job with the flowers. We've got wildflowers blooming in there all the time. It looks really great. And then you look behind it, it's nothing but this weed infested crap. And horsetail was just the wrong choice for that place. If we could dig that out as part of this project and just put something else in, wouldn't cost much money, and do the same sort of landscaping and just clean up the entrance in general. Again, the biological component of this is gonna be cheap in terms of the overall project, and it would really, really clean up our facade.
So this
that's
is
my.
the entrance steps and beautification project.
Does everybody know what I'm talking
No,
about?
I know
It's
exactly what you're
miserable.
talking
It's
about. I
awful.
agree with you.
Yeah, okay.
So Councilmember Rambo made the suggestion that we go with concept B. But that was not part of the original motion, so do we need to amend the motion, or can we just?
If
Well, if everybody agrees, then we just give you guidance.
Yeah, was there a second to the motion?
Yes.
Well, he didn't know, did he?
I
Is that a
didn't say-
motion he wanted to make? He didn't make a motion.
We made a
he
motion and we have
recommendation.
discussion. We're in discussion.
Yeah, we're in discussion now.
In theory, if both the folks that made the motion are comfortable with that change, then that would be fine. But if
Okay.
not, then we might want to go back and just.
So I don't remember who made the motion in the second.
I made a motion and Cliff seconded.
So are you both comfortable with going with concept B?
Well, I don't think we should restrict anything right now.
No, I'm, this is all,
This is all conceptual, right?
Yeah.
You-
He was just
got some-
mentioning,
We've got some ideas and you guys are gonna finalize it and bring it back before it goes any further, right?
Add your thoughts to it, you know?
Okay. All right,
We're getting
so
too
Councilor
carried
Rambo,
away.
you see what they're saying?
no, I was providing guidance
Yeah.
to Tom.
Just
I
like,
think I think the crew over there agrees with that guidance. Everyone here kind of seems to agree that 1, 2, and or 3 steps is not as ideal as 1 step if we can make that happen. So I was just, again, given the guidance, but I'm okay with the motion as it stands.
Okay, all right. All right, very good. Okay, so any further discussion on the motion? Then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed,
Nay.
abstentions. One opposed, Councilmember Owen. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, good discussion on that. So
and can I add just pick up another item there too, Chair?
absolutely.
Just a note on the report too, covering a couple just general updates. It's included there, but we did want to just mentioning in the front area, we have the metal structure. It's almost like it was meant for plants to grow up at vines to grow up, and I don't know why, but the metal structure in front of the building on the north side, if you look out, you come out, turn to your right, you'll see it. It's rusted. It's kind of been dilapidated over time. This committee previously had said, hey, go ahead and put something together to possibly remove that or at least paint it. So that's in the works. We're putting together bid documents for that. We've got quite a few other projects actively in the works right now. We're still investigating the water damage. We have an engineer designing putting that water upstream, like we had mentioned. We have the roof that's gonna be cleaned before Celebrate Wildwood. That's a pretty easy one to do. We have the HVAC system repairs that some have taken place to date, but some still are pending later this year. We have our HVAC duct system will be cleaned out later this year as well after in the fall months. The spiral staircase, we're working to figure out the best way and who would be the best contacts to try to contact for the bid documents themselves, because it is somewhat specialty work, trying to find a woodsmith. The metal structure doesn't need to be adjusted, but the wood on top of it is somewhat dilapidated, needs to be stained at least, and some of it is cracked. So fixing that, the front entrance there, obviously, was already noted. And then we did have TSI come out and have checked the city's audio equipment in the council chambers. We are getting a quote to not necessarily redo the entire system in the council chambers, but to update the back end equalizer and audio processor to pretty much take away that issue we've been having where it kind of cuts in, or if we've had some where some mics work a little bit better than others. That's all stemming from the back rack, if you will, the actual equipment that processes the input. It's just outdated. It was installed in 2013. So relatively when you look at the whole cost of outfitting that room, we'll plan to probably keep the microphones the same and have just all the back end items upgraded with the intent that we can do a more full upgrade as we get some of these other projects addressed. But this will at least clean up all the sound and will actually set us up. Something we've requested in this proposal is make sure we address the performance issues we've been facing, but at the same time, making sure that when we do go to upgrade it with possibly new audio and visual equipment, because we could install a camera in the back that zooms in on people as they speak. And that's something that other cities have done. We can install another camera that automatically transitions over when the public speaks at the podium. There's some ways we could really enhance our YouTube videos that we submit and publish out to the public. That can come still, but the main thing is trying to address the technical difficulties we've been having. There's a quick fix to that, and also a long-term plan to address both the camera and the equipment back there. So just wanted to make a note there too, but we should have a quote now. Be coming back to this committee as well.
So question for you, thought just occurred to me. We have an ad hoc building committee in place right now.
That's correct.
How is what they're doing different from what we are discussing here tonight?
It is very similar, and they actually cover this. The main thing that the department wanted to bring up tonight, given the time sensitive matter of it was the issue with the sidewalk and the stairs here, because those have come up relatively recently and we had updates, but the other we're just giving the committee as a generalized update.
Okay.
Would be forwarded to the council as well.
All right, perfect. Before we leave this topic, any other questions or comments from anyone?
I have a question. Yeah, generally, cable doesn't fail, it's the connections. And so as part of this project, could you ensure that they're gonna ring out the cables? Like, it's
Yes.
just, you know, and they might wanna re-terminate, you know, everything or.
And sorry, I didn't include that. The plan.
No, that's, if you've got it covered, then you got it
No,
covered.
no, and that's a very important thing to say, because part of it will be, I can show you in the back rack what we're gonna replace, but I've also requested that we have it rewired. So all of our stuff that we see out there, that'll stay the same, but cleaning up the wiring both at the table that runs the show and underneath, so that really we're gonna try to tuck those wires in so that no one that might be sitting there might accidentally kick it and then it disconnects. We're gonna try to take all of that, centralize it, and just run it through the back. We might have to cut a small hole in the wall or something like that and repatch it, but overall, it's gonna lead to a much better system and way easier to upgrade. Right now, the way it's wired is very, it's almost like they went out of their way to make it more difficult. They put it underneath it's actually underneath the dais. It's not ideal.
Okay.
Yeah, but that'll be coming.
Rob, it sounds like a project for you and I to come in and do.
Yeah, we can, I got the stuff, we don't even have to buy any equipment.
Hey.
All right, so I guess moving on now to item number 6, Public Works. Status report on city improvement projects. City Administrator, I believe you get to take a break here and we turn things over to Director Brown.
Council members, Chair, provided the update to you for this month. Frankly, this is, I think, a pretty much identical version of what was submitted to council on Monday night. So I don't think there's any new information to add. We had some discussion about 109 BA and Old State Road shared use path on Monday night. I'm happy to address any further questions you may have about either one of those projects or any of the other ones that are on the schedule. I know Councilmember Owen is interested in progress with the 386 and 387 bridges down on Wabash Creek Road. I don't have a lot of progress to share with you tonight on that, other than I do expect to bring it back to you potentially next month with more information on that improvement project to share. I think so. With that, I'll wrap. If there's any specific questions, I'll be glad to do my best to address them.
Can I add a quick FYI there?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chair. Just a note to, it's not 100% confirmed just yet, but there is a high likelihood, and it's mentioned on Monday night, but that crosswalk at Lake Country Lane, would most likely be a decision for the council to whether or not it's gonna be taken on by the city. But from all indications, the county's not willing to pay for the maintenance and operation of that RRFB in perpetuity. So I wanted to just kind of confirm, we've had some further discussions, and it does seem like this, if we wanted to have the crosswalk there in the RRFB system, it would be something the city would have to install, of course, and maintain in perpetuity.
So not to put anybody on the spot here, and it's something we're gonna hold you to, but if the city takes responsibility for that, what are we taking a look at in terms of cost, roughly?
So the main thing is, well, if it gets hit by a car, which in that case, that could happen, but not as big of a concern where it's at. We would have a $5,000 deductible, so that would be one thing. If every time it gets damaged, it would be $5,000 deductible to fix. That said, after 10 years, that's when we typically see, Rick, could you confirm that 10 years it takes?
That's kind of been our recent experience with these installations, is you can figure roughly 10 years life. That's what we're seeing.
Yep.
And then you need to replace a large part, most of the equipment.
Doing one of these is like $30,000 to do an RRB installation.
Okay.
So that's what was it, 30, we have to pay that?
Yeah, our plan was already to install it originally in the conceptual design. County had kind of given a rough, go ahead of, yeah, that's fine. But then when we actually came out to permit it, pull the permits for the project, they had issue with it. They said it didn't meet their warrant requirements. And they're somewhat correct in the sense that there are only 24 houses there, so the peak number of users using the trail and the crosswalk at any given time does not meet what they typically would put at RRFB, but it was more so from the city's perspective, just we had it on the plan set already, and we we wish we would have.
Does it get used by anybody else on that side of the street? Or is it just
Well-
basically going over to that neighborhood?
It's just connecting it. So I would say that the only folks that would necessarily use it consistently would be the 24 homes in the neighborhood. There also is an RFB being installed, and this one, we are installing and paying for the installation, but the county will maintain it and operate it. Is the one at Lakeshore Meadows. So we've got conclusion on that. There's two RFBs being installed. That subdivision has quite a few more residents that would be using it, but truthfully, both in this instance, they're just servicing the neighborhood that stretches back there, so they can access with a guided and also noted and signed crosswalk over to the new.
And they can't get up to the other, because there's no sidewalk. on
No,
the
there's no sidewalk there. It's without it, I mean, quite frankly, if, say, the RFB wasn't installed there, legally, they would still be able to cross at that intersection. They just wouldn't necessarily have the actual signage that would be necessary that would flash. And one thing we could do still, even if the county doesn't permit it, it doesn't meet, if we can't budget long term, is have some type of ramp included there, so they know where to cross, so we at least know like the safest place to cross is right here. There's some things we can do. That said, it would be one of the, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but for the county specifically, we don't have all too many situations where we're maintaining their equipment. Typically, we've done projects where we build it, but then they are the ones to take ownership after.
I think that's fair to say. In fact, we've partnered with them, I don't know, was it 3 or 4 years ago? To the north at Ridge Road, there's an installation in place. At that location, basically the city paid for the equipment and I don't know, or maybe I take that back. They may have paid for the equipment. We installed it. But we're not on the hook for maintaining it. It's the county's to maintain.
So you're saying the county isn't for this, right?
No, they are adamantly, they don't mind us doing it and we can figure out the engineering to do it. It seems, there is some work that needs to be done there. We're working to finish that now, but they are pretty much making the claim that, hey, this doesn't get enough daily peak users, so therefore, you can put it on there at your expense. We'll let you do it as long as it's safe, but we're not going to pay for it with any county money. That was their.
Are you recommending the city pay for it?
That is the question for the council, but that said, would be the first time we would deviate from our, typically, it's a more of a custom, not a policy, but we've never taken ownership and maintained a county asset long term. We've done projects, but it's not, we're taking over this space in perpetuity.
So are you looking for a recommendation from this committee?
No, this is just an update.
Just for information?
Yeah, we'll have to come back. Once we have something, well, first of all, we need the actual design of it to be formally approved by the county for a permit, but that will then have to come back to the city council because we would be taking ownership of that crosswalk practically and updating the maintenance agreement.
And do we have other places to get to our trail systems where there would be similar situations where people gotta cross over a road to get to them, and now we've set a precedence where people are gonna come back and say, well, this, I want you to put a one on our road, one off of Shepherd or wherever one of our other trails is.
Well, we do have a policy for establishing these. We could look a little bit further at that. But nonetheless, this really is coming from this crosswalk. We had the public open house. When we first designed this, there was a RRFB plan, because when you look at Lakeshore Meadows, it's a decent sized subdivision. There's quite a few houses in there. I would probably say anywhere between like 70 to 100 houses in the neighborhood. If you go down there, we had that included in the plan set for the majority of the time we were planning it. So that one was kind of set in stone. That said, we had the open house. And we had a couple open houses for this trail. And the feedback we received overwhelmingly from the residents on Lake Country Lane and Meadowside Ridge was that, hey, we're right down the street. We don't have access to this trail that's being built, this lovely trail you guys are doing. Thank you, but we don't have necessarily the access to it. The council, listening to those requests, then did request that the department then include this RFB at this location. And at that point, that's actually when the county said, in concept, it looks good, but then when we actually push comes to shove, when you pull the permit, that means they're signing off on ownership eventually. that's when they started making.
I saw a couple people stand up and leave the room, and I am inclined to declare a short 5-minute recess for anybody else that needs to do so, including yours truly. Then we can come back, and I don't think we're too far from.
Manage.
You get to a chest time. Drinking. That's a lot, I think, pressure too.
Top Roswell Trail.
Why?
Oh, it's not the same situation.
So it's maybe.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna ask that. So. Boulder Public Safety doesn't
We
like. the
never
police.
use difference.
They're making a big deal of that. So.
Wearing cuts.
Yeah.
We used to go 3 hours, so that's short.
What happens now?
You gotta do that.
35,000.
It's a recommendation.
Here's what I want you to do for me.
And,
And this is, in my opinion, this will be the last time I
Right now, if they want to get from the neighborhood across and they're walking,
approve something that
you know, over to the
Captain
bigger
of the
neighborhoods.
police force recommended.
And so it's.
no, I think he's your track.
Legal, what we would do if we don't.
I talked to him.
We have to.
But he's in a position. If you're gonna
Legal
you
costs
don't want
more.
daily prices allowed, because they don't want that. They just want that way on cost, right?
Right.
And there are.
And we work with the police, so,
We'd still make the connection.
you know, right.
We
now,
still give them like the ramp to get on.
There's more construction going.
Ramp and then from their side or
Here's
yours.
where it's up on their side.
This is your number across from the street. There's three different.
Yeah, it's a. Basically.
What you do is you're short.
When they.
are all back. So we will continue. So are we done with the update on the city projects?
So I think the bridges, we're gonna have some updates on those next week, maybe, or next month.
Okay. So then, moving on to the MoDOT supplemental agreement for Valley Road project action item.
Chairman, council members, hopefully this is a fairly easy item. So I think you know we are working on the design of our Valley Road improvement project right now. We are currently trying to acquire easements for construction for that project. As we went through the design, we found it necessary to essentially request an extension.
Rick, hold on just for a second, gentlemen.
We're just clarifying where this is.
Yeah. I don't wanna burst my confidence that quick.
So the Valley,
that's okay.
the Valley Road project, just to be clear, is from Clayton Road up to Strecker Road. That's the road that runs along the middle school. Actually has Clarkson Valley on one side of it for a fair amount, but that's where it's at. So we are working on design and currently acquiring easements. We did have to request a one-time extension for the project earlier. Honestly, it was probably close to a year ago when we actually did this. Through MoDOT and East West Gateway, the extension was granted, so we are working towards having the plans completed by the end of the year, essentially and bidding it until next spring for construction next summer. To formalize the extension that has been granted, we must amend our current agreement with MoDOT, which covers the funding that we're getting through the federal government. We will get about $800,000 in federal funding for this improvement project. So what we are recommending tonight and asking for is moving forward with a supplemental agreement with MoDOT, which will essentially address the revised schedule for the project and update it to the extension that has been granted through East West Gateway earlier, really last year. So that is the recommendation, is to move forward with the supplemental agreement with MoDOT. So specific questions that you have, I'll do my best to.
Councilmember Owen.
I noted on your utility coordination had a preliminary date of 4/26, been moved to 6/26, so with that date's already passed as our new finish date. So we probably just need to make sure that date gets updated. If
Well,
it's-
understood. That's why I was kind of making the point. This actually all transpired a year ago. It just takes MoDOT this much time to get around to saying, hey, we need to update our existing agreement.
So these are the old dates, we gotta update these dates then.
So
That's what I'm confused.
the attachment A is the current schedule that we got the extension for, and we are working towards. So, but we've been working towards this for some time because it was approved earlier, and now we're just finally getting around to doing the paperwork to add it to the agreement to formalize the agreement.
6/20.
Yep, I think he's, and Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, but is this the document? Oh, wait, no.
But I mean, maybe I'm confused. I just saw a 6/26 finish date on the revised timeline. Everything else has been moved to 27 except for that, and I thought this was the Schedule A one-time extension form. Is that the last extension form, not the updated one?
Right, so basically, when this was granted, we said we would do the utility coordination work from April to June of this year.
Okay,
The schedule preceded those dates, so
you're
that
gonna
work,
update this in the new agreement or what?
yes.
Yes.
That's what I was confused by. I thought that was the new schedule.
Other questions for Director Brown? So Director Brown, you're looking for a motion to proceed with the supplemental agreement, is that it?
I'd like to get a motion, yes, to proceed with the execution of the supplemental agreement. If the motion is approved, it will go to the city council for formal approval.
All right, so would someone like to make a motion for Director Brown to proceed?
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Councilmember Owen. Do we have a second? Motion seconded by Councilmember Kranz. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions? Very good. All right, thank you. That moves us on to the, let's see. Proposed vector control agreement with St. Louis County. Another action item.
Chair and council members, this last item came through an agreement that we've had in place sometime with St. Louis County for vector control services. Primarily, this is mosquitoes. Thankfully, we don't get any calls to my knowledge about rodents, but it could deal with that as well. But most of the calls that we get from mosquitoes come in and we basically transfer them. I don't know if you've gotten too many this summer at all.
No.
It varies. Some years we get a lot of calls about mosquitoes. We forward them to St. Louis County, to our contact with the county, and they address them. They do come out and they spray based on their investigations throughout the course of the summer. So this is a existing agreement that we've had in place. It's for 5 years. Essentially, this will be the next 5-year period if we choose to renew it. And so that is the recommendation from the department, is to move forward and to continue the agreement with St. Louis County to provide vector control services to the city on a contract basis for the next 5 years.
So questions for Director Brown, Councilmember Owen.
Full of questions tonight. So we've had this in place before and we've been covering it with the $7,500.
It's a fairly minimal expense every year. Depending on the calls that we receive to residents, they usually send an invoice and it's been about that amount or less.
So the only thing I saw in it that I wasn't real thrilled about, but they give us a starting rate and they have the authority to increase it to whatever they want. And we've contracted for 5 years. So I guess we can cancel it in 30 days, but which is the benefit, that they could change it from $144 an hour to $500 an hour. And then I guess we just have to cancel the contract because there's no tie-in on increases to any sort of CPI or anything. But again, because we have the 30-day out, I guess that's fine.
That's the main control that we have, is that they almost do this as like a, quite frankly, this was stuff that they didn't even really have as formal agreement as much, but they would just request the funding. I think they're trying to formalize it. That 30-day out would be something that, you know, coming this time next year when they're planning to do it and bill us, they would submit to us what the cost is, and then we'll come back and we'd come to the council and say, hey, we either need to do this ourselves or accept this higher rate. But fortunately, it would be nice to have it attached to a CPIU. Hope is that this rate has remained, and correct, but this rate has remained relatively consistent over the last 5 or so years. I haven't seen them necessarily adjust it all too much, but this very well could be, given the county's had some, they're having their own budgetary issues, and they very well could be trying to make sure that everyone, any service that they're providing, they're getting their full amount back.
As long as we get 30 day, yeah, it's fine. That's just one thing I noticed is they have the right to make changes.
That's correct. It's very. And I could see, it is something anything with the county, we're keeping an eye on, because obviously they're trying to make sure that they get a return on their investments too.
Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Cran.
So with $7,500 once a year, is that what you're saying? They come out and do it? There's a pond behind my house and I haven't seen a mosquito in 5 years. I don't know what happened to the mosquitoes, but I haven't seen them where I live, but
Thank you, bats, and
they do a good job. They must do.
bats are your friends.
Is there any brush around it?
No.
Okay, well then that's the thing. If the sun gets to it and the air circulates, you don't have a mosquito problem. It's just when it's grown up.
It's typically going in standing water and shallow standing water.
And they need something their larvae has to kind of connect to the side of the brush, if you will.
Well, this is spraying and larvicide, there are EPA registered larvicides that are perfectly healthy for everything, and they only kill mosquitoes because they get in their gut and poison mosquitoes. They're specifically targeted at mosquitoes. But spraying, no matter, even the best EPA registered insecticide kills a lot of stuff it shouldn't kill, and they try to judiciously apply it in places where it's needed and so on and so forth. So I think I'm going to abstain because I don't want to get in the way of this and be the lone voice saying no, but I'm not going to vote in favor of spraying. There are better ways to do it. So anyway, but rather than go down that road, we'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
So, the proposed vector control agreement. You're requesting authorization to execute the agreement with St. Louis County, is that correct, Director Brown?
So if the committee approves the motion in favor of moving forward, we will present this to the council for full approval of the agreement.
So would somebody like to make that motion? Made by Councilmember Kranz, do we have a second? Councilmember Owen. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstention.
I am abstaining. Thank you.
Councilmember Rambo abstains, okay. Moving on to topics for inclusion on future agendas, there's nothing there at this point in time. Councilmember Hubbard.
I have a couple of questions that could either fit here or miscellaneous, whatever would be appropriate. It's only just gonna take a couple minutes.
Okay, either way, if you wanna talk now.
Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So the Board of Public Safety doesn't like the police contract that was forwarded to them. So, let's talk to Mr. Kranz about it. The path of that would be they give their recommendations and then it comes to the city council then.
So there was, yeah, there.
Yeah, please.
The MMPW committee opened and discussed it. Their recommendation was filed, of course. That went to Board of Public Safety since it is a police matter. And technically, the report, kind of a cumulative report, would come back to the full city council for consideration in the work session.
What was the controversy? Can I ask?
Not a controversy, it was more so just looking at the cost structure.
Oh, yeah, that's
and
Well, Captain Mundell made a recommendation that reduced it by four officers. And with his recommendation, that's what we voted for.
So was, maybe a little clarification here. Was it Captain Mundell that made the recommendation, or
Yes.
was he asked if he could do the job with 4 or fewer?
No, he made the cause I made the motion and I asked him. Cause I asked him, you're okay with making this recommendation? And I even asked, would anybody lose their jobs? And he said, no. And that's why I'll never do it again. I'll never do it again. If I feel a little set up, actually.
You'll have a chance to vote on it though.
No, but I feel a little set up.
So-
There's a council member on that board that was on the previous one, and he's getting some heat about it, I think.
So I guess, to the city administrator's point, that will come before.
I understand. I was just kind of making sure I understood the path. It's gonna
Okay.
come back to us anyway, but I'm just not happy what I'm hearing,
What was the Board of Public Safety's concern that you didn't like?
Because you're cutting some police officers.
So Board of Public Safety, I don't think we're talking out of school. We always say, they are always going to err on the side of maximum safety. So they're probably always going to be naturally reluctant to cut or see a cut to any members of our Wildwood precinct.
Right.
But and I think to your point, Councilmember Albers, when that would come before the council, I would be interested in having Captain Mundell, of course, I guess now it would be Captain Ostendorf, come to the microphone and express their feelings on this. Is it
Good idea.
doable? Would there be any? So, there's still plenty of opportunity for discussions on this.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got a question about that.
Yeah.
There seems to have been a shift toward speed control on 100 and 109 specifically that are coming directly from the county as opposed to Wildwood police officers providing that service. Is that an accurate assessment?
There has been some additional resources used to help with speed enforcement, but that's just part of their routine, the county's routine operations, but they're.
So it's not it's.
No. No change has been made, and that will come to the full city council. There is a vote that would take place at the council to consider it. Actually, very helpful information. This will be distributed to the council. The St. Louis County Police Department did a call analysis to better understand the needs based off call volume and the distance that the officer has to travel during the 5-beat shift. And that report will be submitted to the full city council. It's pretty much saying that 2.6 officers could technically be reduced to still meet that call volume, but that said, the report will come forth soon. So we'll have that. Actually, I think that'll be with the mayor's permission if we come up at a very soon agenda, because we actually have to get the contract number from them for 2026. We need to have that locked in. And we've been with the transition of the captain, the new captain. That'll be a pretty quick discussion we'll be having with them actually next week.
But the officially endorsed position, if the position officially endorsed by our outgoing captain and our incoming captain, that would hold enormous, carry enormous weight, at least to me, so.
But they'll tell you, it presents some challenges to them with scheduling and vacations and sickness, and there may be days where you don't get the 5 beats because of that, because you're short on people, so there's a risk there, and you now have security over at Deer Birds. You got all these mini bikes and scooters, all this construction going on, parks. I mean, I wouldn't want to see a cut in our police budget.
Okay, that's all I had on that. Mr. Lee, the last component of the survey is still forthcoming to you,
Yes.
you said, and that'll be brought to the September meeting.
Yep, that's correct.
Again, what's the path from there? Are we gonna be able to vote on anything at that point, or?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, so that'll be at a work session. We'll
Right.
come back with the final report, which, I mean, the results won't change. They're already in. What Professor Naines is completing now is an analysis. We had, I think, a little bit over 200 responses in the open-ended section. So a lot of people shared, longer responses about their feelings. That information will be shared along with information on the margin of error, the 95% confidence interval of the survey, how representative it is of the whole city, the representation of the actual parcel size distribution, and then also representation totals by ward, which aren't technically statistically valid, but the city representation is statistically valid. So I wanted to point that out, but that's really the data that's gonna come forward in that final report. That said, when that goes to the city council, it'll be a work session item, and then the council is at that point able to make recommendations based off the information provided or any other recommendation. So that said, it doesn't have a direct now vote on this. It's just presenting the report. And then if the council wants to make an adjustment or take any of the information from the survey and decide to amend the code or anything, that would be the appropriate time to do. But that would also, just a note too, we had discussed this as this was all ongoing, that if a change were to be made to the actual size distribution, I think further research would need to be done at Board of Public Safety or something along those lines to make sure how do you define the contiguous landmass for like aggregation, if that's a solution that's considered by the council? How do you want to replicate that? And then also, there is an interesting zoning quirk that includes some information that hunting and wild, I think it's the exact wording is hunting and wildlife management is a actual use listed on our 3-acre lots in our NU non-urban. I think it might be on the R1 as well. But if we change that, we might have to update the zoning code to be reflective of any regulations we change elsewhere as well. So there would be some procedural steps if there's a change to be made.
This would be a quick one. When do you see the review process coming around for us to be involved with? And reviews, to help with the reviews that of the different personnel?
Oh, that is handled by the chair of this committee and the mayor concurrently, and it should probably soon in the
I
following
thought
seasons.
there was discussion last time about trying to get it earlier. It was kind of later last year.
Um,
Was I wrong?
and I'll talk with the chair here, but technically that is something that's handled by the chair and the mayor and goes out to the council.
Okay.
To your point, it usually is pretty late in the year when we.
I thought it was almost too late last year and we talked about it, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Okay.
Good point.
Okay. And then the last thing, and maybe it's for you, Scott, so should, reviewing the attorney services for the city, will that be on the agenda next September for our,
It will not be on the agenda for September. I will not be here in September, so you will be chairing that particular
oh
meeting.
boy, I can, no, I'm kidding. No,
But
okay,
but to answer your question, so I have already had 2 in-depth conversations with the mayor and 2 in-depth conversations with the city administrator on proceeding with gathering all the information that we would want
okay,
to start taking a look at where we're at on that particular topic.
okay.
That's probably gonna be a lot of in-depth research. So I would not be surprised if the city administrator did not have all that completed by the September meeting
No, that's
anyway.
fine. That's fine.
But I mean, there's nothing wrong with him giving an update at the September meeting with where he's at in the process.
Okay.
Would that be a fair statement, city administrator?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know, we can kind of tell you where we're at, but you know, some of the things we're taking a look at doing is current contract has been in place since 2015. I believe there's only been 2 increases that have been authorized by the council in the fees for the current legal counsel. We'd like to find out when those were, what type of a percentage increase took place, so we can get some perspective on, you know, how his costs have gone up with the city. We do know that evidently we are the lowest revenue producing municipality that he provides legal services to, and it's just because of the increases in his fees that have not been authorized. Back when there was a group of council members in place that some of you may remember was affectionately referred to as the cabal, there were a number of proposed increases that were floated before the council and they were always turned down.
Okay.
Now, in conjunction with that, what we're going to do is gather information on what are the fees being paid to the current city attorney for his legal services that are provided to other municipalities, so we can do some comparison. Now, that may not be an apples to apples comparison because some municipalities may be smaller, some may be larger. We also want to compare with the legal fees being paid by other municipalities to their legal advisory attorneys. One example might be to compare ourselves with Baldwin, since Baldwin is roughly about 31,000 people, so roughly about the same size. We are, however, keep in mind that Baldwin has a lot more commercial activity than we do. So again, that may not be an apples to apples, but again, it gives us another reference point. So we're trying to develop as many different possible reference points as possible. You know, in order to make an informed judgment. Something else that we want to take a look at is what are the current legal issues, long-term legal, what do I want to call them, council member, but long-term litigation proceedings that we are in the middle of right now. Because
That's-
obviously,
Sure, that's
if
been,
the council were so
that's been
inclined.
brought up in some of my conversations. so
Yeah,
I-
we don't
I
want to
do
change.
understand that, especially with what we talked about
Right.
Monday. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we're trying to come up with every possible way,
Sure.
every possible data point that we can uncover in order to proceed with this.
Okay.
My last conversation with the city administrator was just this afternoon on that topic. And what I'm going to be doing is preparing an email, just confirming those points to him. Not so much that I need to use that in order to follow up with him, but just in case the question gets asked down the road, you know, where are we at with this? How soon did we get started with this? We will have that documentation in place.
Okay.
Because what we want to do is avoid some of the misunderstanding that took place with a similar motion that was made to admin and PW last December to do some vetting of possible inclusion of the bow hunters into the city's deer culling efforts. And we found out that back at that point in time, that nothing was done for probably about a 3-month period. And then it was dumped into the city administrator's lap with only about 30 days to go before the deadline. So I want to make it clear to everyone involved, we are not delaying in proceeding with this. We are getting started within 72 hours of the motion that was passed on Monday night. In fact, we're getting started before I have even seen the actual official copy of the motion that was passed on Monday night. So we're well underway.
Okay, okay, and a yearly review is supposed to be done for the charter on this too. It does say in the charter, we've never done one since I've been on here. So,
Yeah, and I haven't read that, so I don't know what the city charter says, so you're one up on me there.
okay,
Well, we do vote to reauthorize though, right?
Go through every year during the budgeting
is
season.
that,
Yeah.
is that?
That is technically-
To review?
Hell, I don't know. I'm just saying, I'm just suggesting that might be.
No, I
how
don't
it
know, I'm
is.
just saying it does say it, so whatever.
So that's the thing, I guess maybe so maybe you've hit on something important here, that maybe what constitutes a review
Yeah,
needs to be defined.
right, okay. And maybe it says a little more in there than that, I don't know, I forget, but it does say something. Sorry to take a few more minutes, that's all I have.
No, that's okay.
That's
That's
all I
okay.
have.
That's a good question. So we'll move on to miscellaneous items. I just have one, I don't know if Councilmember Kranz, you and I had talked this afternoon about this situation with the bank and street lights and so on, and I think
Oh, I discussed it with, Mr. Thomas
you already did.
Lee, yes, I did.
Okay, perfect. And then I have just one more question, something I noticed this morning when I was out for a ride. As I'm on Manchester Road down here and I head west, when I cross 109, there's a button I can press at the signal in order to be able to cross over and continue heading west. But when I come east, I did not notice any button that I can press in order to change the signals. So I just wondered if maybe Director Brown could comment on why that isn't the case.
I suppose that request could be made to MoDOT. The reason it is because there's a crosswalk only on the one side of the intersection. So you'd be
Okay.
correct. There is a push button as you go westbound. The crosswalk's on the north side of the intersection though only. So coming back westbound, there is no crosswalk on that side. So you could do that yourself too. We could bring it up to their MoDOT's attention and request they do something about it. May not be a quick fix, but we can ask.
I doubt if they'll fix it. I mean, a bike is a legal vehicle, right? You're supposed to you're supposed to adhere to the traffic laws and so on and so forth, and if you could veer across into the opposite side and go on the crosswalk if you want to push the button, but who the heck wants to do that? So I think you're probably just gonna have to stay there in the
As long as- and you probably know this, as long as a car shows up, you're not really getting any special favors by pushing that button necessarily. If no car shows up, then you might
Yeah.
need that.
So the issue is, as you are heading eastbound, if.
No, I'm familiar with the problem.
Yeah,
I know
okay.
exactly what the problem is there. It's just that I just ride as though I'm a car, a very slow obstructive car. And I don't have a problem. I just wait at the stupid light. What else? If there's nobody coming, I go across.
We're good. Okay, so next meeting date, Tuesday, September the 1st, 2026 at 5:30 p.m. And we'll get a break from me, and Councilmember Alpers will be front and center.
My debut.
Yes. So unless anybody else has any questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn by Councilmember Kranz, second by Councilmember Albers. Non-debatable, thank goodness. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Abstentions?
Was supposed to stay.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good job, good conversation, right?
The pictures out there. Yeah.
Different steps.
Thanks, Sarah.
Little pictures in there right home.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that. I'm sorry. That's, you know what my.